The capital city of the Viren was dying. Smoke rose in black columns, twisting high into the grey sky. Buildings that once shone with crystal light were now broken skeletons. Fires burned where streets had been. The air was heavy with ash and the smell of blood. Taren, a young Viren officer, stood on the roof of the last command tower. His body ached, his uniform torn. Below him, the city's defense guns were silent, empty of power. The Dravic Empire's attack had been swift, merciless. And without pause he had seen them before the Dravic soldiers, huge and armored, their eyes cold and without pity. They came not to conquer, but to erase. To them, the Viren were nothing but a weak species taking up space in their galaxy. The war had lasted for years. Each month, the Viren lost another city, another world. Allies promised help but sent nothing. Some closed their borders. Others simply pretended not to hear now. There was only one option left, a final message, a desperate plea. Inside the command tower, the last working transmitter hummed weakly. Its surface was scorched from an earlier blast. A single crew of technicians worked in silence. Every move was slow and careful. If this transmitter failed, their voice would never leave this planet. Taran placed his clawed hands on the console. "Open the deep-range channel," he said. The chief technician, an older Viren with a scar across his cheek, looked at him. "We have no allies left, Captain." "No one will answer." Taran's jaw tightened. "Then we send it anyway." The message was certainly what mattered. It carried no lies, no promises, only truth. This is the Viren Union. We are under extermination by the Dravic Empire. Our cities are gone, our fleets destroyed. We have nothing left. If you hear this, please help us. The technician pressed the final key. A faint vibration passed through the floor as the transmitter sent the signal out beyond the ruined city, past their dying world into the cold ocean of stars. No one spoke for a long time. Outside, the distant thunder of explosions rolled through the air. Taran kept his eyes on the horizon, where fire lit the clouds. He did not know if the message would reach anyone. He did not know if anyone would care. Hours passed. The Dravic did not return that night, perhaps busy destroying another city. The sky turned black, and the only light came from the fires. Then, deep inside the tower, the receiver made a sound. It was not a sound the Viren had heard in years. Sharp, quick, pulse, steady and strong. An incoming signal. Technicians froze. Someone whispered, "It can't be." The chief technician adjusted the controls. "It's not from the Dravic, not from any known neighbor either. The origin point is distant, very distant." Taran leaned closer. "How far?" The technician swallowed. From the Sol system, no one spoke. The Sol system was old on the star maps, but rarely mentioned. Its people, the humans, were not part of the main galactic alliances. Most species had never even seen one. The signal began to clear. A voice, deep and steady, came through the static. "Viren Union, this is Earth Command. Your message has been received. We are mobilizing 8 fleets. Hold your ground." The room went silent again. Taran felt his heartbeat quicken. The voice continued, "We do not abandon the desperate. Prepare coordinates for landing. And know this, we don't fight half wars, we end them." The transmission ended. Taran looked at the faces around him. They were stunned, disbelieving, and yet there was a spark in their eyes again. Something he had not seen in months. Hope, but hope was dangerous. The Dravik were not just strong, they were unstoppable. And humanity, for all their promises, had not faced them here, on this soil. Still, the words burned in Terran's mind. We end them. That night, no one slept. Scouts were sent to watch the skies. Civilians were hidden deeper underground. Weapons were repaired in silence. 2 days later, the scouts reported movement above the atmosphere. Shapes, dozens of them, slipping out of faster-than-light jumps. Their hulls were black as space, their weapons glowing faint blue at their center. A massive warship moved like a predator among its pack. The humans had arrived. The Viren city was silent as the fleet descended. At first, they were only shadows. Against the grey morning sky, sharp-edged shapes cutting through the clouds. Then the sound came. A deep, steady hum that grew louder until the air seemed to vibrate. Windows rattled. Dust shook from the ruins. Every alien in the city stopped and stared upward. Taren stood on the cracked plaza with a group of surviving soldiers, his claws curled against the handle of his rifle. He had no idea what a human warship looked like until this moment. Now, he understood why some species called them black storms. The lead vessel was enormous sits hole, dark and smooth, without markings, as if it were carved from the void itself. Along its sides, faint blue lines pulsed like veins. Behind it, smaller ships formed a perfect formation, each moving with frightening precision. They did not drift. They did not waver. They moved like one mind. They moved like predators, whispered one of Terran's soldiers. The ships slowed. A single craft detached from the formation and descended toward the plaza. It was shaped like an arrowhead, with engines glowing white-hot at the back. As it landed, the ground trembled. Heat washed over the Viren soldiers, forcing them to step back. The ramp lowered from the shadow inside. Figures began to walk out. The first human was taller than Terran expected. He wore black armor that covered him from neck to boots, the plates edged with silver. His helmet was under one arm, revealing a face weathered by time and war skin pale, eyes dark and unreadable. He moved with the confidence of someone who had walked into danger many times and survived. Commander Reyes. He introduced himself in a voice that carried across the plaza. His words were translated instantly by a device on his collar. We heard your call. Terran stepped forward. We did not expect anyone to answer. Not so quickly. Reyes glanced at the ruins, the smoke still rising from the edges of the city. You sent a call for aid. We came. There was no boast in his tone, no false kindness, only fact. Behind him, more humans emerged, soldiers in matching armor, moving in perfect discipline. Some carried heavy weapons that glowed faintly, others carried sealed crates that hissed open to reveal medical supplies. Without needing orders, they split into 2 groups, one heading toward the city gates, the other setting up a field hospital right there in the plaza. The Viron soldiers watched, confused. No species they knew combined war and aid in the same breath. Reyes turned back to Terran. You need to understand something about us, he said. When we commit to a fight, we bring 2 things: fire to burn your enemies, and mercy for those who survive. Terran didn't know what to say. The human's eyes were calm, but there was something in them, something dangerous. Like a blade hidden under cloth. One of the younger Viren soldiers stepped forward, and, if the Dravik come back today, Reyes didn't even blink. Then, they won't leave. For the rest of the day, the humans worked. Massive gun batteries were set up along the outer streets. Towers that had once been purely decorative now held automated turrets. Drones patrolled the skies, scanning every shadow. In the field hospital, human medics moved with quiet speed, tending to injured Viren with hands that were gentle despite the armor on their bodies. Taren walked among them, still trying to understand. These strange allies, they laughed among themselves even as they prepared for war. They comforted children without hesitation, yet every one of them carried enough firepower to tear through Dravic armor like paper dot. By sunset, the city felt different. Not safe not yet, but alive again. Fires had been put out. Wounded were fed and resting. And on the outer streets, human soldiers stood watch with weapons ready. That night, as the second moon rose over the city, a soft alarm pulsed in the command tower. A scout drone had detected movement far beyond the hills, too fast to be refugees, too organized to be animals. 2 yards sank. The Dravic had returned. Commander Reyes stood on the edge of the plaza, staring into the darkness. He didn't shout. He didn't even raise his voice. He simply said, "Wake the guns." And the city, now guarded by humanity, prepared for its first battle with fire and mercy. The night air was still when the first Dravic engines roared over the hills. From the command tower, Taran saw them black shapes crawling across the horizon, their metal skins catching the pale moonlight. Dozens of ground carriers, heavy cannons, mounted on their backs. In the skies above them, swarms of Dravic gunships moved in tight patterns, like hungry insects. The Viren soldiers tensed. Some whispered prayers. Others gripped their rifles as if they were the only things keeping them alive. Commander Reyes stood on the plaza wall, hands resting on the rail, watching the enemy advance. His voice was calm, almost too calm. "They think you're alone," he said to Taran. "Let's show them you're not." From every rooftop, human drones lifted into the sky, their lights blinking red. On the streets, portable railguns locked into firing positions with deep, mechanical clicks. The sound was like a heartbeat made of steel. The Dravic made no attempt to hide their approach. They had crushed the Viren before. They expected no different tonight. The first line of their infantry moved forward, huge, armored bodies carrying plasma rifles longer than a human's arm span. "Range in," Reyes ordered. Human snipers took position on the rooftops. Their weapons were silent at first, just the faint hiss of power building. Then thump. The lead Dravic soldier fell, his helmet crushed inward by a single rail slug. Another shot, another Dravic down. The invaders roared, firing back wildly, but the humans did not panic. Every shot they took found its mark. Then the sky lit up from above the city. 2 human strike ships fired their first volleys, thin, blue-white. Lines tore through the darkness, kinetic rounds, traveling faster than the eye could follow. The ground shook as the Dravic's front line was ripped apart in seconds. Carriers exploded in blooms of orange fire. The Viren soldiers stared wide-eyed. They had seen battles before, but not like this. Humanity's weapons didn't just kill, they ended. "Push them back," Reyes said into his cum. On the eastern street, Viren troops fought side by side with human marines. The humans moved in small, fast units, covering each other's flanks, their armor glowing faintly from energy shields. One marine, a woman with a scar over her jaw, used a shoulder-mounted cannon to blast through a Dravic transport like it was made of paper, and yet, between bursts of fire, humanity's other face showed itself. In the Plaza Hospital, human medics worked under incoming fire. A mortar round slammed into a nearby building, shattering walls. And moments later, they were pulling an injured Viren child from the rubble. A Marine crouched low, shielding the medic with his own body as debris rained down. "Go," the Marine shouted. The medic ran, carrying the child toward the safety of the tents. Even in the middle of destruction, there was mercy. By midnight, the Dravik began to falter. Their ground assault had been crushed in the north, their air support cut down by precision. Drones. But they were not retreating yet. That's when Reyes called for the final strike. From high orbit, the flagship HSS Resolution shifted its position. Its massive rail batteries locked onto the enemy's main camp beyond the hills. In the command tower, Taran heard the low hum of charging coils, and then a deep, rolling thunder as the cannons fired. The hills lit up like sunrise. The Dravik camp was torn apart in a storm of metal and fire. No weapon the Viren had ever seen could deliver such force from so far away. Silence followed. Smoke rose into the moonlight. On the ground, the surviving Dravik began to scatter. Some dropped their weapons and ran into the darkness. Others tried to fight, but their shots were desperate, wild. Human forces closed in, cutting down resistance with precise, measured bursts. Taran stood on the wall, unable to speak. The battlefield was still lit with fires, the smell of burning metal and ozone heavy in the air. He turned to Reyes. "You didn't just stop them," Taran said quietly. "You erased them." Reyes didn't smile. "We don't leave enemies behind to come back later." There was no triumph in his voice, just certainty. By dawn, the city was quiet again. The bodies of the Dravik were gone moved beyond the walls. Human engineers had already begun repairing the damage from the night's attack. The Viren moved among them, offering water, food, and silent nods of respect. But as Taran walked through the streets, he felt something strange in the air. It wasn't just relief. It wasn't just safety. It was the realization that the humans had brought something more than victory. They had brought change. The sun rose slow and pale over the city. Where there had been fire the night before, there was now smoke drifting in thin ribbons. Streets that had echoed with gunfire were quiet. The only sounds were the soft hum of repair drones and the murmur of voices. Run walked through the plaza, with Commander Reyes at his side. The ground was scarred black lines where plasma fire had cut deep, patches of stone shattered by explosions. But mixed with the damage were signs of life. Human medics knelt beside wounded Viren, changing bandages, checking pulses. Soldiers carried crates of food to families hiding in underground shelters. The Viren watched these humans carefully. They had seen the fire. Now they were seeing the other side. Near the broken shell of a building, Taran noticed a small group gathered. A Viren child was trapped under a fallen beam, his voice weak. A human marine armor still marked with scorch burns from the night before, crouched beside him. The marine's helmet was off, revealing short-cropped hair and eyes that were calm, despite the danger. "Don't move," she said gently, her translator making the words smooth in the Viren language. "We're going to lift it together." Two more humans arrived with an anti-grav jack. Slowly, carefully, they raised the beam. The child was pulled free, trembling but alive. The Marine knelt again, handing him a ration bar. "Eat," she said. "You're safe now." The child blinked up at her and whispered, "Thank you." The moment was small, but Taran felt it like a spark in the cold. The repairs continued through the morning. Where the Dravik had destroyed homes, human engineers laid down modular shelters. smooth, silver walls that could be built in hours. Water filtration units were set up in the plaza, providing clean water for the first time in weeks. Human doctors didn't just heal battle wounds. They treated sickness, hunger, and exhaustion. Some Viren soldiers, still uncertain, approached the humans cautiously. They expected arrogance or demands for payment. Instead, they found shared tools, quiet jokes, and help given without condition. By midday, Reyes gathered the Viren leaders in the command tower. Taran stood beside him as he spoke. "We are here to protect you," Reyes said, "but protection is not enough. You must be ready to stand again when we leave." One of the elders frowned. "Leave? Why would you leave after such a victory?" Reyes's gaze was steady. "Because we don't want to rule you. Mercy means giving you back your own strength, not replacing it with ours." Taran studied him. He had heard many leaders speak of mercy before, but for humans, it seemed to be more than a word. It was a choice they made every day between destruction and preservation, between leaving enemies in ruins and lifting allies to their feet. Late in the afternoon, the peace was broken. A survivor from the outskirts staggered into the plaza, his clothes torn and face pale. "The Dravik," he gasped. "They're regrouping, not far from here." The mood shifted instantly. Marines moved toward their weapons. Viren soldiers tightened their grips on rifles. But Reyes held up a hand. "They'll expect us to hit them with the same fire as last night," he said. "We'll do something they won't expect." By evening, small human teams had slipped beyond the hills under cover of darkness. They didn't go in, guns blazing. They carried supplies water. Medical kitsand approached the Dravik prisoners left behind after the battle. Taran couldn't believe it. "Why are you helping them?" Reyes answered, without looking away from the scope of his rifle. "Mercy is easy when it's for friends. It means more when it's for enemies." The prisoners didn't thank them. Most just stared, confused. But Taran noticed something: fear, yes, but also uncertainty. The Dravik were used to enemies who hated them. They didn't know what to do with enemies who saved their wounded. By the time the teams returned, the city had changed again. Fires were gone. The streets smelled of clean water and food cooking over portable heaters. Children played in the shadows of human mechs. Soldiers, Viren and human, shared the same benches, talking quietly under the glow of portable lights. Taran realized the Dravik's greatest weapon had not been their ships or soldiers. It had been the hopelessness they spread. And humanity had shattered it not only with their guns, but with the strange, stubborn kindness they carried into the ruins. That night, as the second moon climbed over the city walls, Reyes stood looking toward the hills. The Dravik was still out there. The war wasn't over, but the Viren were no longer broken. They had seen what humanity could do with fire, and they had felt what humanity could do with mercy. And Taran knew, in the battles still to come, those two things together would change everything. The warning came before dawn. A human scout drone returned from the hills with battle footage. The Dravik were not retreating. They were gathering hundreds of soldiers, reinforced by new carriers and gunships. In the center of their camp stood a war machine taller than any building in the city, its armor black and jagged, its cannons glowing with red heat. "They're coming for revenge," Reyes said, his voice low but steady. Taran stared at the hologram. "If that weapon reaches the city," Reyes finished the thought, "there won't be a city." The humans moved quickly. Defensive lines were set, turrets reloaded. The Viren soldiers, once scattered and afraid, now stood shoulder to shoulder with their human allies. Every soldier knew this was the battle that would decide whether they lived free or died here. The first Dravik strike came with the sunrise. Gunships screamed over the hills, firing plasma bolts that turned stone streets into rivers of molten glass. Human railguns answered, their thunder shaking the air. The sky filled with light and fire. In the south sector, the massive Dravik war machine advanced. It moved like a predator, each step making the ground tremble. Plasma cannons tore through defensive walls as if they were paper. Target the legs, Reyes ordered. Human strike teams fired precision shots at the machine's joints, but its armor absorbed the hits. The Viren tried heavier explosives, but even that barely slowed it. Then Reyes gave the order no one expected. All units, pull. Back to the plaza. Let it follow. The retreat was fast and controlled. Streets were cleared, civilians hidden deep underground. The Dravik machine pushed forward, roaring like some metal beast from an ancient nightmare. Behind it, enemy troops poured into the city. Believing victory was close, they didn't see the trap. The moment the war machine stepped into the open plaza, heavy doors in the surrounding rooftops slid open. Hidden inside were human grav mines, black spheres that hovered silently until activated. Now, Reyes said, the mines shot upward, attaching themselves to the war machine's legs and underbelly. In the same second, every human and Viren heavy weapon in the plaza opened fire. The air became a wall of noise rail slugs, rockets, plasma bursts striking all at once. The war machine staggered, its cannons firing wildly into empty buildings. Its armor cracked under the combined assault. One grave mine detonated, ripping through the joint of its front leg. The giant lurched forward. Again, Reyes shouted. The second wave of fire tore it apart. Its own plasma core went critical, and in a flash of white and red, the Dravik's greatest weapon was nothing but smoking. Metal scattered across the plaza. The explosion broke the enemy's spirit. With their war machine gone, Dravik soldiers began to fall back. But the humans and Viren didn't let them regroup. They pushed forward, street by street, until the last enemy was driven beyond the hills. Some were captured. Most fled into the deep wastelands, leaving behind weapons and shattered morale. By midday, the city was free. In the aftermath, the plaza was filled not with silence, but with the sound of rebuilding. Viren and human engineers worked side by side. Medical tents bustled with activity, treating the wounded from both species. Children ran between the repair crews, their laughter mixing with the clank of tools. Terran found Reyes standing near the base of the ruined command tower, looking out over the city. It's over, Terran said. Reyes shook his head. No, wars never really end, but this one, you can win now. You mean without you, Terran said quietly. Reyes nodded. We came because you called. We stayed because it was right, but you're strong enough to stand without us. That's the mercy part. We fight with fire, but we don't make you depend on us. Terran hesitated, and if the Dravik return, Reyes's eyes hardened, then you call us again, and we'll come. That's the bond now. Later, a ceremony was held in the rebuilt plaza. The Viren raised a new flag, half their own colors, half the blue and white of Earth. It fluttered in the wind above the place where the war machine had fallen. Reyes spoke only one sentence to the gathered crowd. We came with fire to end. Your enemies and mercy to give you back your future. The words echoed across the plaza, across the rebuilt streets, and into the hearts of every Viren who heard them. That night, the human fleet prepared to leave orbit. From the surface, Taran watched their ships rise, black against the stars. He knew they were going to other wars, to answer other desperate calls. But he also knew one thing with absolute certainty. If the Viren ever called again, humanity would come, and when they came, they would bring both the sword and the hand that heals.